Coming up in Week 17, we've got an NFC North matchup between the Packers and the Vikings. Packers heading to Minnesota, hoping to stay alive in the playoffs. They're heading up against a backup quarterback in Jaren Hall, who obviously had some snaps earlier in the season against the Packers in relief for Kirk Cousins when he tore his Achilles. But now we're going to have Jaren Hall on a full week of preparation, knowing that he's going to be taking on the Green Bay Packers, who are significantly injured. The Packers secondary hasn't been performing well in the last few weeks, and they are even more hurt now. We had news today that even Stokes is going to be placed on IR due to his hamstring injury, so someone who was an expected starter is no longer to be playing, and that's going to create problems for this Packers team. So both of these teams are obviously candidates who could make the playoffs, and they both need to win their last two games in order to have a chance. And the Packers are probably trying to take this momentum from the Carolina game, obviously coming off a win there. Granted, it was a close win that I mentioned, it was probably going to be a close win to begin with. There are some positives when we look at the Packers offense. Jordan Love has been getting in a rhythm. All these rookies and second-year players are performing at a much higher rate than everyone expected coming into the season. So the offense is finally rolling, and I think that's going to play in their favor against this defense from Brian Flores, who is going to try to disguise coverages and give a lot of different looks. So when we look at the keys to the game for the Packers offense, they basically need to keep in extra protection. All right, you need an extra body, whether it's a tight end, a running back, someone who is going to stay in and protect Jordan Love, because you could have a 7-man or 6-man front. Maybe only 5 of them blitz, maybe all of them blitz, but you just need to be ready because there is not a lot of predictability in Brian Flores' defense. And he's been doing very, very well with his exotic looks from blitzes. So I think one of the things that you need to try to do as well as the Packers is try to run the ball outside. And this is going to seem a little bit predictable or repetitive when we talk about Matt LaFleur's offense, but trying to run outside, running sweeps, these jet sweeps, it might be a big Jaden Reed game with these jet sweeps. And we also need to make sure that LaFleur keeps up with these motions. So keep up with the motions, whether it is an intended motion to identify if it's man or zone, or if it's another type of motion, which is just trying to distract the defense. Basically, the motions that have been running throughout the entire year in this West Coast offense each one has a purpose. It might be setting up a counter move for a block, a kick out. It might be setting up identification, whether it's man or zone. It might just be there as a distraction where you put someone in a zone and then you fake a pass to them. We've seen the double pass screen where basically you have motion to one side, you fake the screen, you fake a screen to the other, and then you hit the tight end in the middle. We've seen that before, so LaFleur really just needs to keep up with these motions. Now, obviously, Minnesota's defense, they're going to be giving a lot of disguised looks, a lot of pressure looks. They're trying to put the pressure on Jordan Love to make the right decisions. Luckily, Love has been making the right decisions lately, but you'll never know with Flores' defense if the pressure that you're seeing is actually going to be there or not. So it's going to be a big mental game for the Vikings. Now, in terms of the Packers secondary and the Packers defense, we know they have a lot of injuries, and this is really going to be a tough game. You've got Justin Jefferson, who is back, and you've really got your third, fourth, fifth stringers that are going to be in your starting lineup. And of course, you're going to have David Long in there as well. So you're going to have a lot of these inexperienced corners that are going to be playing defense, and they've already had communication issues with their safeties. So it's not going to be a very pretty game defensively. The only group that I can foresee having a good game for this Packers defense is going to be the front. So not even the inside linebackers, because the inside linebackers have been very, very, tough in terms of their coverage skills lately. But I think the defensive line on the interior in particular might be a big Carl Brooks game, hopefully, because the interior of the line looks to be the weakness of the Vikings in terms of their offensive line. So if there's any spot to expose, you're going to want to expose that interior. So I think the Packers defense is going to want to blitz sparingly. I think you rush 4 and you try to trust your guys because Preston Smith has quietly been having a good year. Rashawn Gary still having a solid year. I think you try to force Jaron Hall to beat you with his arm. And you try to contain him in the pocket. You try to get your edge rushers upfield. Try to get the defensive tackles to eat up sacks, forcing him to step into them. And then also, I think you give Quay Walker one job. Quay Walker is either going to blitz or is going to spy. If you put him in coverage and zone, he's just not going to be reading the zone well. He hasn't been the last few games, and he's been a liability in coverage. So I think if you simplify the game plan and you give him one job where he knows he has to do it, he can use his athleticism to his advantage, and that's going to help the Packers on defense. Now, looking at the Minnesota offense, I think you're going to see a lot of bunch formations against them, lots of motions because they want to try to confuse this defense. This defense has had a ton of communication issues. So if they're running bunch, who knows if they're going to be covering the right person? Who knows if the zones are going to be right? Who knows if they're playing man in a bunch formation? And obviously using those motions as well to confuse their assignments because you've had safeties roll to the wrong side and everything in the last couple weeks. So you're just trying to confuse the Green Bay defense here with the Minnesota offense and trying to find your targets, right? Trying to find open receivers, probably going to be Justin Jefferson. I imagine he's going to be attacking the leverage and getting open. It's probably going to be a big game for Justin Jefferson. Wouldn't be surprised if he goes for 8, 9, 10 catches and well over 150 yards. Because right now, the secondary and the interior linebackers playing zone coverage is not great in Green Bay. So looking at the final thoughts, this could really go any way. It could be the end of the Packers season here if they lose to the Minnesota Vikings. Could also be the end of the Vikings season if they lose here to the Packers. But it's going to be a very, very close game. It's going to be whoever doesn't turn the ball over, whoever plays safer, whoever possesses the ball more. It's going to be another very, very close game. And it's going to be coming down to which defense can make a big play and keep their team in playoff contention. And I think that the Packers come out victorious here with a slim margin of 28-27. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think the Packers are going to be able to pull this one out? Or is it going to be the Vikings' chance to get into the playoffs this year? Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.